Hey there, everyone. I wanted to come and share the story with you that happened to me today because it's beautiful timing of the universe because it falls in line almost exactly with my big announcement for today. So, here's the story. I was having breakfast with a friend today, and she gave me permission to share the story. My friend is in the process of creating a product and at some point obviously wants to be selling it and marketing it. And she has run into a very big blockage in the system. So she's run into an obstacle that's making it really, really hard for her to proceed with that. And understandably, she is frustrated and discouraged by that, but not giving up hope. But we were discussing it. And what we discussed and what I helped lay out for her, again, is very much in line with what I have going on starting today. So, here's what we talked about. I decided to get curious with her about this block that is happening in her process. And I said, let's just be curious about this. You know, let's be curious about the blockage. And she said two interesting things. So the first thing she said was, oh, I always have blockages. I always run into some, blockage whenever I'm trying to accomplish a big thing. I always hit a block, but I always end up getting through it. It just sometimes takes way longer than I thought, sometimes years, but I always get through it. And that was important point number one. Important point number two that she said was I know this sounds weird, but I just feel hurt by it. I know that sounds weird, but I just feel hurt. Okay. So I said, well, let's get curious about this and see if we together can maybe help move that block sooner than what it looks like it would be. This is how I did it with her. Tell me about this block. What makes this different? And that was, I think, when she said, no, I just always seem to run into blocks. Okay. Tell me about that. How far back in your life do you feel like you have started running into blocks? And she shared with me, literally since birth. So her story is that when she was born, her biological mother held her for 5 minutes and had already decided to give her up for adoption. So she held her for 5 minutes. My friend, as a baby, then went to stay with a foster family for several weeks and then later on was adopted. So my friend and I are both clinicians, and so we both could have a pretty quick discussion about that. And we both sort of know that infants, newborns, before they are even born, are attached to their mother, not just physically, but they know the sound of their voice, they know their smell, they're just familiar with that energy. And so to have that connection and to then be taken from her and not have that connection ever again, even if the foster family was a nice family, at some point she then left the foster family, right? So that infant learns early on that I get something that I really want. I want connection, but then it gets taken from me. And what I really might want, I might really be yearning for this caregiver, but that one isn't here anymore. And I get this caregiver, right? And this other caregiver might still be a good caregiver, but attachment, connection, we want the one that we want, right? And so as an infant, even if there wasn't big, huge, ugly trauma, meaning abuse or anything like that, as an infant, what she learned is that my needs don't get met in the way that I want them to right away. The things that I want don't come easily to me. I have to wait for a while to get the thing that I want. Okay? So, law of attraction means the energy we put out into the world is what we attract back to us. Okay? The trick with the law of attraction is when we have beliefs that we carry around with us, especially ones that we've been carrying around for a very, very, very long time, we're not even consciously thinking about them. They're just sort of part of our energy, they're part of our belief system, and we sort of almost take them for granted. Like, this is just how my life is. I just always run into blocks, right? So, because that is the belief that carries energy and that's what goes out into the world, we are bringing back to us things that match that. So, for my friend, what that would look like is every time I try to take on this new task, this new adventure, this new big thing, I always run into blocks. And every time that would happen, because she was sharing like other stories with me of like, I was trying to do this thing and I ran into a block and I couldn't do it until years later. Trying to do this thing and I ran into a block and I couldn't do it until years later. So every time stuff like that happens, it starts to feel like proof of that belief. It starts to feel like proof of, I just always run into blocks. I don't get the things that I want easily. It's not proof that that belief is true. It is proof that the law of attraction is bringing me back more of the same. Okay? So, here's what we kind of did with that. If all of that stuff is true and what I'm saying, how do we move out of that? How do we accept, like, okay, so that's the belief I picked up. I didn't mean to pick it up, but it just sort of happened, kind of got imprinted on me. But what do I do about it now, right? How do I stop this from being a thing? Because that awareness alone isn't often enough to like shift what we're putting out there, right? So here's what I helped kind of do with her. I did this sort of little process that I often do with people. And I closed my eyes because this is like how I just tune in better. So I don't care if I look silly right now, that's okay. So I just said to her, like, of course you felt hurt that this block came because you're just trying to do this really important thing. You want it for your family. You want it because it's going to feel good and you're going to make a difference. And it's so hard that the thing that you're reaching for, you can't get. The thing that you want that will make you feel good, you can't grab onto and make happen easily. Of course you feel hurt about that. Sometimes when we start to feel hurt about things like that, we start to take it very personally. Like, something must be wrong with me that I always run into blocks. I must not be good enough. I must not be lovable, right? Which I know sounds like a weird way to phrase it. But something must be wrong with me that this always happens in my life. So when I say, like, of course you felt hurt, of course you did. Look at all of this evidence that you've had in your life that has shown you, like, you run into blocks, and here it is again. And you're just trying to take care of your family, right? You are allowed to feel hurt. That hurt is allowed to be in your body right now, right? We really, really, really want to validate our own feelings. That hurt is allowed to be here. Step 2. If we get curious even deeper, what is that hurt revealing to us? That hurt is revealing how much you really want things to work. It's revealing how much you really want your needs to get met, and you deserve your needs to get met. You always have deserved your needs to get met. The hurt that you feel reveals how much desire you have to get your needs met. And cool, you're allowed to feel that. Okay? What we now can maybe understand is that this is just a function of the law of attraction, right? That you keep encountering blocks based on this belief. And then I said to her, if you could perhaps take that hurt and notice it, and then ask the greater loving force that is bigger than you. Some people would call that God. Some people would call it the universe or source or whatever. Words can be interchangeable like that. If you could tune into that hurt and that feeling of discouragement and this belief that you just always are going to run into blocks, and you could connect to the peace of God, in her case, that's her belief system, that peace of God that is inside of you, and ask it how it feels about you right now. What does that feel like? And so again, I have my eyes closed because that's how I tune in better. So even as I'm asking this, even though this is not my story, this is her story, even as I ask that, I just feel this sense of warmth and love. And when I say feel, this is kind of weird. I mean, I can kind of feel the emotion of it, and I can also feel a sensation that literally is like in my heart space that feels warm and kind of like tingly. So the longer I don't talk, and if I just sat here with my eyes closed, I would feel it more and more and more. And if I were to get kind of a little deeper with it and say, what does this peace of God that's inside of me feel about me and about this block that I'm running into? And I could tune in to the answer. I know that sounds weird to some people, but to what comes to me as I say that, again, it's not even my story. It's like a feeling of, I believe in you. I've always believed in you, and we're going to do this together. Like, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm excited for you. We're doing this. It's exciting. I love you. I'm right here, right? So the quieter that we could get, and if I weren't talking, the more we would feel that. So now let's think about that present day problem, that block that she's having. If the law of attraction was interfering, if you will, meaning the belief that she had early on was going out into the universe, bringing back to her more of the same, more blocks. When we shift and we start to bring healing to that belief that says, I don't get to have the things that I really desire. I have to wait. It doesn't come easily. She's not maybe saying it, but like sometimes people, again, maybe don't feel like they are worthy or deserving or that they're enough. If that stuff starts to get healed by connecting with this greater loving force who says, I'm not judging you. I'm right here. I love you. I will help you. We're going to do this. Now, law of attraction is carrying that energy out. And I'm attracting back more of that energy, right? So the healing that we bring to ourselves starts to shift our beliefs, starts to shift the energy we're putting out, and then we are shifting what we're bringing back to us. Okay? So we start with like the problem that we're facing today. We get curious about, how long have I been carrying a belief like this? Where else has this shown up in my life? What feelings kind of go with that? What emotions go with that? If I got curious about those feelings, what are those feelings revealing to me? If it's sadness, if it's anger, if it's disappointment, what is it revealing? And whatever it's revealing, if I then if I knew how to tune into this force that's greater than ourselves and allowed it to respond to me, respond to my emotions and my thoughts and my feelings, and I could really feel that connection, then that piece of me starts to get healed. It starts to shift my beliefs. It starts to shift my energy. And then it starts to shift the things that show up in our lives. Okay? So, again, this was perfect timing for me. Thank you, universe. Because this, my friends, is the foundation of Big News, the course that I have created that is just coming now, right now, today. For the next several days, this is going to be available to anyone who obviously would like to purchase it, but it is called the Self-Doubt Recovery System, and it's incorporating all those things that I just laid out there. So it's how do we understand attachment stuff that happens when we're young? How do we understand law of attraction stuff? How do we understand and start to experience what a spiritual connection can feel like? And how do we apply all that stuff so that it helps the things in our life to feel better and start to give us the opportunity to thrive in a whole different way? So I'm super excited. I've been working on this for a long time, and I'm so excited to bring it and share it with everybody else. You can find information about it at www.lisahazemer.com, or of course on my Facebook page, The Spiritual and Sassy Therapist. And I look forward to working with you guys on some of this stuff too. Until later, my friends.